What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Pastor Brian. This is the Empower Hour. I'm excited to get into the topic of money management. Are you ready to get into it? I hope you are. Definitely load up your questions in the chat. All right, so here's my thumbnail. You ready? Christian today. So we're going to get practical, right? If you were here, let me double check. When did we do an episode on tithing? I want to say it was last week. I'm going to double check just so you can look up the number for sure. That would be episode, let's see. I think it was 18. Is it 18? Yes. Episode number 18 of the Empower Hour was all about the tithe. We got into evaluating what the tithe is, what it isn't, the issue of generosity, the issue of how money is a reflection of our heart. God cares about what we do with our money because our money is a reflection of our heart. If you invest your entire life into building treasures on earth, then that is where your heart will be also. But we need to invest our effort and our time and our energy into treasures in heaven. So that's what it's all about. Anyways, if you're interested in that, go check out episode number 18 after this show. This show is going to be about practical steps to managing your money as a Christian. And so if this is your first time joining us, then I want to remind you, if you have a question, just type Q-your question in the chat, and then I will we'll get to it soon enough. Type QA if you'd like to remain anonymous. If this is your first time here, welcome. We do this twice a week. We have two shows. On Wednesdays, we have the Empower Hour, which is about mission. It's about discipleship, about theology, about biblical knowledge, biblical study, practical life application, that kind of stuff. On Friday, we have the Freedom Friday show, usually at the same time, which is 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about spiritual warfare, deliverance, dealing with demons, basically just finding total freedom, which is, we need to find freedom. You should be free. If you're a follower of Jesus, you should be free of everything. And so I want to empower you, but sometimes we need to find freedom before we can really find true empowerment in every other area, right? But God sets us free so that we can live the abundant life. And so that's what we want to do. All right. So I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. I know this is a different time. Normally we start about 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, but it is now 8 o'clock. And so I just did a marathon show with the Aramaic Broadcast Network. And so that will be uploaded to our course at it's called Empowered Interviews at empowered365.net. Let me give you that link. There you go. You can check it out. It's called Empowered Interviews. It will also be available on our YouTube channel. And there's a link for that. youtube.com/empowered Christian Ministries. And so you can also check it out there in our Empowered Interviews course. Tonight we talked about what the church will look like in the end times. So it's really fascinating. I was there with Pastor Vance Walker, Pastor Jihad Kobe, and Dr. Tim Rail, and we just had an interesting conversation and discussion about different angles, different perspectives, examining a lot of the scriptures, because ultimately we need to know this. As Christians, there will be tribulation and trial, and there will be an apostasy within the church. There will be false deception, false teaching, the doctrines of demons in the church. It might be in your church right now. How do you know if you're in a good church? How do you know if your pastor is teaching biblical truth? How do you know if what you believe is what you should believe? You need to know God's word. You need to know God's word. And you need to have a relationship with him. And you need to be conformed into the image of Christ by not only letting Jesus be your Lord, but also reverse that, not only being your savior, but also your Lord. He gets to tell you what is important and what you should be doing with your life. And so there's a lot of issues: homosexuality, abortion, gender confusion, all kinds of ideas, different ideas about Jesus, about salvation, about what the Bible really teaches about a lot of things. And so we need to know the truth. And so I would encourage you to check that out and make sure that you're on the straight path that leads to eternal life. All right. So without further ado, practical tips for money management. All right. So first things first, your money is not your money. Let me tell you. Let me show you something. All right. So where is this parable at? Jesus gave, goodness, why can't I find you? All right, there it is. All right. So we're going to go to Matthew 25 and starting all right. So we're just going to read through this little parable. This parable has a lot of important principles for us, but we're going to focus in on money today. And so, but first things first, your money doesn't belong to you. You're a steward of it for God's glory. So all the other practicals, like, you need to know that first. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We're going to get into the practical stuff. Give me just a couple of minutes to make this case so that we can get into it. All right. Matthew 25, verse 1. At that time, the kingdom of heaven, hold on. Nope, not getting even. We're going to scroll down. That's not where I want. Okay. He says again, it will be like verse 14. It will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. Right? Jesus is the one who's going on the journey. We're the servants. It's a little FYI. You'll see it later, but I'm just kind of prefacing that so I don't have to reteach this again. To one, he gave 5 bags of gold, or talents in some translation. To another, 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. You're given different amounts, right? Some people have a lot of money, some won't. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. He duplicated it. See, also, the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. He duplicated it. But the one who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master gave him the same response. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Notice he didn't say to the person he gave 2 bags, how come you didn't bring me 5? The other guy gave me 5. He measured his faithfulness, and his joy in response was commensurate with what he was given. All right. Then the man who received 1 bag of gold came. All right. Good. You could join us for a minute. Glad you could. So he said, I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when it returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. Notice that the one who has 10 bags still has 10. They still belong to him. And they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So this parable uses the example of gold, bags of gold in the NIV translation. Other translations say talents, which was basically a form of money. But we could extrapolate from this. Jesus left. He gave us stuff to steward for him. He wants a return on his investment. He wants a return on his investment. He left. He ascended into heaven. He deposited his Holy Spirit into you. And whatever you do in this life as a follower, a disciple of Jesus, he wants a return on that investment. You don't own your life. Scripture says you've died, and now the life you live now belongs in Christ. You died to yourself, your selfish, sinful nature. You now belong to Christ. So your life should reflect that. Your money should reflect that. Your behavior should reflect that. Your words, your thoughts, your emotions, what you do, your career, your family, everything you do should reflect that. Today, we're going to focus in on money. But first, I'm going to build the whole case first on you're a steward of what God has entrusted you to. Some he might bless with billions or millions or trillions, right? 5 bags of gold. Others maybe 2. And others maybe just 1. Your job is to steward that 1 or that 2 or that 5 to the best of your ability. Now, God doesn't care if you build up millions of dollars for him. It ain't about the money. It's about his kingdom. So the interest that he's interested in, play on words there, is that you invest it in ways that glorify God. Whatever you do with your money should glorify God. You exist to glorify God. Whatever you use your money for should glorify God. You don't live, as we looked at in episode 18, we don't live for money. You can't serve both God and money. You'll either despise one and you'll either love one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So you have to serve God, and your money needs to serve God as well. All right. So that's the main point. You're a steward. It doesn't belong to you. It's not your money. It's God's money. You are just stewarding it. You're taking care of it for him. You're managing his money on his behalf. Just like your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Your body doesn't belong to you anymore. You're managing your body on his behalf. Right? And everything else as well. All right, let's get into the practical stuff. So, what do we do first? How do we manage our money first? Well, the goal would be to get in a position financially where you are able to live life and steward everything else also for God's glory in a way that your lack of financial management doesn't hinder that, right? If God calls you to do something with your life, he hasn't just given you money. He's also given you spiritual gifts and natural talents and abilities. He's given you opportunities, given you education. He's given you certain family members. He's given you a certain environment that you're around. He's given you a certain church to be a part of. He's given you all these different things. You're to steward all of them for his glory. And so as you're pursuing that, and if you need more help, guidance on that path, check out the Empowered Christian Roadmap behind me. We have a course at the empowered365.net program. There's also, you can get free samples there, as well as a couple of them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And there's an ebook available. There's an audio book available at Audible and multiple places. You can also get full color print, paperback, and standard color. So lots of different options. The video, the course on the website has the ebook plus videos and stuff added to it. And so that'll give you some direction. But because you want your money to help you do what God has called you to do, right? If God's called you to go and do something with your life and you can't do it because of your financial situation, then you're hindering God's call on your life. You're not going to live fulfilled. You're going to be stressed and burdened. You have to, if you're working 80 hours a week just to barely pay your bills, you're not going to love your spouse the way you're supposed to. You're not going to spend time with your children the way that you're supposed to. You're not going to be developing your skills and your gifts and your talents the way that God wants you to. You're not going to even have time to spend quality time with God and pray and be in the Word and be an active member of your church who's serving and doing different things. You're going to be burdened. So you need to get your money handled so that you can do what you really should be doing, right? Instead of you working to get the money, you need to get a handle on your money so that you can do the work that God has called you to do. And in doing that, you'll find your true identity. You'll find your purpose in life. You'll find fulfillment in doing what God's called you to do. So this isn't just a plan to well, how do I just get more money, or how do I just, have more stuff, or how do I go on more vacations, or whatever you think it's about. It's about God. It's about his glory. It's about living out the fullness of your calling. So money is you're just stewarding it for him. And just as in that parable, they brought it to the bankers who multiplied the money. God will give you money so that, you could give it to the bankers to multiply the money. So you should be smart in those kind of ways. We'll talk about that in a little while. But also the other things he gave you, your time. He gave you your time too. So do you give your time to the banker to multiply your time so that you have the best use of your time? Or are you working 100 hours a week so that you can afford the house and the car? Right? Are you stewarding your time well then? Or are you or is your time being used for you? Right? So you have to ask these really hard questions first. If you get this part right, the rest of it'll make sense, because people go through the steps and it's not rocket science. And a lot of times what keeps them from doing it is they're not starting out in the right place. When you look at the big picture and you go, oh, okay, I need to be doing what God made me to do, what he wants me to do, and by the way, his calling for you is the very thing that you were created to do, and it will give you the most fulfillment in your life. You will wake up like, I can't believe I get to do this every day. And maybe there's future career paths and different things that are there as well. And so that way So, and there's an aspect of this where you just do what's good and right and you trust God. And then he takes care of your needs, as we looked at in episode number 18. He takes care of your needs when you're seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness. He takes care of your other needs. And so if this is your heart's desire and this is where you're going, he'll confirm that what I'm saying is true, and he'll give you the ability to live out and do what you need to do. All right. So the first thing you need to, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started by following a really well-known kind of formula. It's by Dave Ramsey, who's kind of a financial guru, especially in the Christian circles. And it's a very simple formula, which is why it's good. Yes, there's more complex strategies to build wealth and whatnot. That's a different focus than what I want to help you do. I want to help you manage your money to see things clearly and simply. And Dave Ramsey's plan is good at that. This is also part of his total money makeover, which I started learning this in my early 20s and helped me get out of debt early on and set a trajectory where I bought a house at 23, bought my second house at 30. And so it's simple but effective if you follow it. So the first step, he calls it the 7 baby steps. The first one is to save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Your starter emergency fund. Now, if you don't have anything at all and you live in very dire poverty, then you could save $500. Or if you're in a country, so to give you an idea, in America, on average, a typical individual might be able to live on $2,000 a month, give or take. And so this is about half of a month's worth of living, roughly. And so if you're in a country where the equivalent is, okay, I need 1,000 of these to live, then let your emergency fund be half that, right? Whatever you need to live for a month, pretty frugally, like the bare minimum to get by, about half of that is your emergency fund. Your first goal is to build that up and put it in savings in a safe place. The reason for this is because you need psychological, mental, emotional air. If you don't have this and you try to take care of other stuff, as soon as some little problem happens and you don't have any money, you're going to freak out and be like, now I'm all stressed out and now I have to handle this challenge that's going to cost me money. I don't have any money. And so you need this little cushion. What it does is it gives you a little bit of peace of mind. Before you do anything else, it gives you a little bit of peace of mind. If you start with that half number, then double it, and then you have baby step 1 completed. Baby step number 2. Pay off all of your debt besides your house using a debt snowball. Basically, get rid of all debt. So why do we need to get rid of debt? When you're trying to live stably to begin with, and then to build wealth, to build financial security, and be able to bless your children and your grandchildren and so forth. And the Bible does say that this is a good thing to do. It's good to bless those. And you also want to be able to give to the church. You want to be able to give to those in need in your community. You want to be able to give to the work that God's kingdom requires. And if you're struggling to barely pay your bills your whole life, guess what? You won't be a part of the kingdom building process. And if you'll also probably be stuck working all the time. So you'll be ineffective for the kingdom. And so that's not being empowered. You need to get a handle on your money instead of letting your money handle you and making you a slave to it. Debt, the way that debt works is as it compounds interest that works against you, right? I'm going to use simple numbers just for the point. Let's say you owe $1,000 US. You're at a 10% interest. Then at the end of the month, you owe $1,010. No, $1,100. Yeah, 10% compounded. All right. So the longer you stay in debt, the more the fact that you have that debt keeps working against you. You know, if you buy $100,000 house at a reasonable interest rate, I remember I looked this up one year back, and it was like if you spread it out over 30 years of payments, at the time you would have spent $270,000 to do it. You almost paid 3 times more because you paid interest the whole time. And that was at a decent interest rate, by the way, like 4%. And so when you have loans and things that are 8, 9, 10%, 12%, or credit cards that are like 18, 20, 25%, you are guaranteeing that you stay in poverty the longer you stay on these things and you stay dependent upon them. You need to get rid of it all. And so the goal ultimately with investing is, instead of that interest working against you, holding you back, investing is when the interest is working for you, helping propel you forward, right? That same loan, you put in $100,000 at the same interest rate, and in 30 years you have $270,000. Way better, right? So, and that's if you just, anyway, I'm not going to make it complicated today. So baby step number 2 is to pay off all of your debt except for the house. Now you'll notice I gave multiple options. The house is usually the thing that's the biggest, so it's the hardest to pay off. It's also the thing you need to have because you need a roof over your head. And it's also the thing that's spread out the most. And it usually has the best interest rate. Next, after that is usually a car. And then after that is usually student loans for college, or, other kinds of credit cards and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a second mortgage or something like that. Might be kind of in between the house and the car. And you need to pay off that debt. So before we get into that, first, let's look at what's reasonable of a debt in the first place. Because what we have is this idea, in America, we call it keeping up with the Joneses. It's when you see what other people are doing and you want to have as good as what they have, or maybe even a little bit better. You want to keep up with them. This, especially when you are trying to keep up with unsaved people who don't tithe, who don't give to the church, who aren't donating to worthwhile causes. They're hoarding it all for themselves. They're not even trying to steward it well for God, knowing that it's His money that you're managing. They're like, it's my money. I'll do what I want with it. I'll give myself good stuff. So that's who we're often competing against. And sometimes we're competing against people in the church, and people are they want the best clothes and this and that. And they want to go out and have the fanciest cars and the expensive houses and this and that. And really you need to go watch that tithing episode where scripture talks over and over again about not being ensnared by money. So how do you know if your current situation is too luxurious for you, well, you need to pray about it. I would ask first, I would start with what's the bare minimum I need to live? And before you answer that question, know that the homeless people in America who don't have a house and don't have a car and don't have anything else, they're still alive, by the way. So, and I've traveled the world and been to countries where people live on $500 equivalent a year, and they're alive just fine. Okay. Even statistically, the numbers might have changed, but at one point, 85% of the world lived on, I think it was $1.92 per day or less. I think that's the right number. Or no, I take that back. 85% of the world lived on like $6 a day or less. But over, I think it was around 1.2 billion. So maybe it was like 15% of the world lived on the 192 per day. So I know it's very easy in America and in European first world countries and in other countries that are first world to think like that's, well, I don't want to do that. And I don't blame you, right? I mean, even like, look, I'm with you. You could look and say, well, he's got a bunch of books. He's got, lights and stuff. He's got a comfy chair. That's enough to feed a person for a year, right? But I don't want to go the extreme other end and say you should live in destitute poverty as either, because not unless the Lord really puts that on your heart to do that, in which case obey him, but just live moderately. Don't seek to be wealthy and rich and indulge in every possible thing you can. It's God's money, you're stewarding it. Now, God will let you enjoy some of it. He will. But as Paul wrote, I've learned to have much and I've learned to have little, and I'll be content with both. So know that there's different areas in this country and different places of the world where there's a higher standard, where you need a lot more just to get by with the basic. And so, maybe some people need to move to a better area, right? Right. Over in certain parts of California, where I can't remember the name of the city, but there's one area that has, I think like 800,000 homeless people in one major city. And, and the average, and all around that, everything is so expensive where, a one bedroom apartment is, $2,000-$3,000 or more a month. It's such a big hurdle to get to that. That's why they're homeless. Like, how do you even cross that bridge? It's not even like you get a regular job and you can do it. Those people should just go to a different place of the country. If you use wisdom. I met one guy years ago. He came to me and he thought he was blaming demons. And he's like, all these demons, there's a curse against me, a curse against making me stay in poverty and this and that. I said, where do you live? How much are you spending? Oh, I'm paying this. I'm like, okay, that's kind of high compared to some other places in this country. And it was higher than it is in my area. Right. And he said, well, and I'm paying for this car for this kid and this car for this kid. And then I have this loan for that and this. And I'm like, well, sell these cars, get cheaper cars, move to a different place. You could be instantly out of your thing if you just got over your own pride. And he's like, no, I can't leave this. I love this area and my kids go to school here. And he had a million excuses to stay in his problem. And we had a few sessions and I kind of said the same thing multiple times. And ultimately he kept his problem. Now I pray that he overcame it. But, we've got to sometimes be humble enough to say, I have a problem. Now, maybe you live in humility, you live in, simple means for a while until you get out of the hole you've got into. And maybe the Lord opens the door where you can have greater blessing in the future and, and maybe even get back to that place that you were at one point right now, but over your head. If you're over your head, you're too far. You bit off more than you could chew. You bought more stuff than you can pay for. If you have to owe money if you're paying interest on all of it and you barely get by, you can't afford it. You can't afford it. You need to sell it or you need to move. Buy something lighter, smaller, cheaper. You can find plenty of affordable stuff. I know people who made $800 a month and were spending $550 a month on their car payment. And they're depending on other people to pay their other bills. Or they're just owing everybody. It's illegal to live in places and not pay your rent. That's called theft. It's immoral to depend on the government and friends and family and other people to take care of you so that you can keep your luxury. That's immoral. That's theft. That's you taking from other people when we are called to be generous givers. We cannot be takers. We're called to be givers. So first, evaluate all of that. If you're over your head, make the tough call. Make the tough decision. Pray about it. Ask the Lord to confirm it. Say, is this what I should be doing? And you probably know in your heart if you should. Next, how much house is too much house based on your current salary? Your mortgage, well, let me not say mortgage. Your either your mortgage or where you're paying rent should be about 35% of your take-home pay or less. Okay? You make $2,000 a month, 35%, $700 a month. 2,000 take home, $700 a month. Don't have that? Get a roommate. Start making more money. Right? It's too much. It's too much. None of the places in the area you want to live in can do that. Go somewhere else. Sorry. You have to do what you need to do. Don't let your own desire for pleasure and comfort keep you in bondage. Make the tough call. Do what you need to do to get out of your hole. You can rebuild. The Lord will bless your humility. He'll bless your faithfulness and your trust in him. You will have, it'd be better to go somewhere else where your payment's $500 a month, right? If you make $2,000 and you're spending $1,400 a month, you're going to be so stressed out. Now you have to work 70 hours a week just to do it. Because you can't do it with the $2,000 job. Now you have to work another job to get more money to even do it. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be overburdened. You're going to be relying on other people to take care of you. You're not going to be able to be faithful to give to the causes, to the kingdom where God wants you to do. You're going to live, your whole life will be focused on how do I do what I need to do so that I can stay in the house that I get to want. that I want and that I get to stay in. You'll live for the house instead of living for God. Don't do that. Your car, next biggest thing. How do you know that's too? And if you refinance the house and if you basically add that to the mortgage, it's part of your mortgage now. If the combination is too much, sell it. Or move in roommates, in which case you increase your income. Right? Do what you got to do. Take the sacrifice, get out of it. Do what you got to do, even if it's uncomfortable. I've done some crazy stuff in my life. I had a job many years ago before I started ministry when I was still in the secular world. I was making more money than I ever have in my entire life, and my car got totaled. And instead, I bought this little crappy egg beater car. I think it was like, I don't even remember how much. I want to say $1,500, which was not a lot of money. And I drove, because I was driving a lot of miles. I was driving 100 miles a week. No, not 100 miles a week, 100 miles a day. And so I was putting 25,000 miles on my car a year. I'm like, I'm not getting a good car. As long as I have this job, I'm gonna run something down. And I was building up my savings and doing what I need to do. And I was like, I didn't have to drive that car. I actually had the money. I could have done something way better and still been frugal and still been smart and wise. And I even actually had the money in savings to just, if I wanted to, I could buy, I could buy a 10,000. I think I don't even know. Because my car was totaled. I was hit by a drunk driver, and they wrote me a check. The insurance company did. So I think I had 10 grand sitting in the bank just from that. And I didn't have to buy a $2,000 car or a $1,500 car or whatever it was. But I did anyway, because I knew if I take this sacrifice now, it will be better for me long term. I can continue to build up my things and position myself financially so that when I make my next move, I can do whatever I need to do. Had I not done smart things like that, you wouldn't be listening to me, because I wouldn't have been able to start my business. This business didn't make any money before. I'm just starting to get by on it the last 2 years. The first 6 years of this thing, I barely made anything. The first year, I think I made $1,000 or something. And the next year after that, maybe 4 or 7 or something. It was a slow trickle, and I had to be faithful, and I had to do a lot of smart things so that I could do what God has called me to do. But I wasn't worried about the money, and I was able to do that because I made these decisions first, because I was seeking first God and his kingdom and his will for my life, rather than on just keeping nice stuff. I would have had to stay at the other job. I would have had to stay in that industry. I would have had to do, trust me, there were people my age buying houses 3, 4, 5 times as much as I paid for mine. I had that choice to do. If I wanted to keep up with the Joneses and be like everybody else, I could have done that. I could have afforded to do it and still stayed within this 35%. But I knew it was foolish to do so, because honestly, 35 is the max. If you can get it to 25 or 20 or 15, it's even better. You'll be in such a place of liberty where you can do so many things with your money now. You're not in bondage. Money is something you're like, what do I want to do with it, Lord? Lord, what do you want me to do? What great things could I be a part of and bless? How can I share the gospel and spread good in the world? So you have that liberty and that freedom to do that when you're not in bondage. So it's a great place to be. So your car, usually the next biggest thing, should be half that as your mortgage. Roughly speaking, it should be around half. If you're using the same numbers before, if you pay $700 a month for your mortgage, you shouldn't be spending more than $350 for your car payment. You shouldn't. I mean, at most, it should be 25% of your take home. And you can't even do that. And that's only if your car, I would say your car and your, I mean, really, you should want all of your debt. I would say all of your debt should be less than 35%. Your debt to income ratio should be 35% or less. So your car should be more like 10%, 15%. And if your car was 10% and your rent mortgage was 25%, now you're at 35%. And you shouldn't even have credit cards because those usually have the worst interest rates. So how you do the debt, and then don't even get me started on all the other stuff that we buy. Maybe you have a credit card that, the payment is $200-300 a month, and it's insane. So the debt snowball is a practical way to start getting rid of your debt. And a lot of times people want to start with the big thing. Like, I'm going to start with the house, pay that off, then pay off the car, then pay off this and pay off this. They'll do that because they want to go for the biggest thing first. Another thing people will do is they'll go for the thing with the highest interest rate first. They'll pay off that first, and then the next highest, and the next, and this. And so both of those have some like a merit to why people want to do that. But there's something simple about the debt snowball: momentum. When you pay off the smallest loan or debt first, you build momentum. You build the emotional momentum, right? Like, you actually feel like you accomplished something. Yeah, it'd feel better to pay off that $30,000 loan than to pay off the $300 loan. But when you pay that $300 loan off and it says paid off, and then you tell them close the account, and then you take that card and you bring the scissors to it, it's going to feel amazing. And you know that you won't be in bondage to that anymore. Next, then you pay off the next biggest loan. Now, and you keep that going. Because what happens is that $300 loan, let's say it was a 10% interest. Every month you're paying $330 on it. The next one is $1,000. Also at a 10% interest. Every month you're paying $1,100 to it. After you pay off that first one, the $330, let's say you're paying the minimum on the $1,000 one. And so the $100 interest, you pay that every month, but the $1,000 still stays there. And then this other one's $300, and you pay the $30, and you're paying, once you pay that $330, the next month, instead of just paying the minimum $100 on the $1,000 debt, you'll pay the $330 plus the $100, and now you're putting $430 towards it. So you're going to pay the interest, and then you're going to knock the principal from $1,000 down $330, which would be $670. So now the 10% interest the following month will only be the $670. So it'll be $67 in interest. And then if you still have $430 to go towards it, boom, right? You're knocking down the interest. Within 3 months, they're both gone. All right. I would say, unless you have one that, if you have anything that's a really crazy high interest rate, you got anything in the 20-25% range, you might not want. I could see a reason why you don't want to pay, your little $1,000 thing with a 4% interest rate versus something else with crazy high percentage. When that's the case, what you could do is debt consolidation. You could you could do one of two things. You could use one of your cards that has a transfer with zero interest and move some of that debt over to a different location so that it pays down the interest. So it'd be interest free while you're doing this. And you're only doing this not so you can keep buying stuff. You're doing this because you're strategically trying to steward this the best way and pay it off as quickly as possible in the smartest way as possible. You could either move it that way, in which case take advantage of those kinds of promotions and things that companies will do, or sometimes if you have a lot of debt and it's kind of really out of control, use a debt consolidation organization where basically they'll take your 8 different debts, they'll bring them all into one unified place that has a very low interest rate. You have to get a quote and see if the low interest rate actually will save a lot of money. But if the interest rate will save you $200 a month or $300 a month, then it's kind of a no-brainer. Do that and pay it down way quicker. Just realize when you do that, now you have a big thing. So the snowball won't get to work the same level, the same way, because you won't feel like you're always making that momentum the same way. You'll still be making it, but it won't feel as emotionally satisfying as paying off the little ones. And so, but those are a few options. But basically, pay off all the debt. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. For many, many, many years, my only debt was the mortgage. And I had to pay, and I paid off my car and had a car with no loans for a long time. And then I had some times when in my former business that I had before I really kind of gave all this to the Lord and let him show me otherwise, I had some credit card debt, but I always had the money and savings to pay it off if I needed to. It was part of a sort of a strategy I had. I wasn't paying interest, but I wasn't, I was trying to strategically do it. But I would say if you've had problems with this for most of your life, strive to have a debt-free mindset, because that will help you get out of this. You'll have peace and joy, and then you'll be able to build the wealth and do kingdom work and all that stuff. All right. So you pay off all debt. Don't worry about the other stuff until you finish baby step number 2. Baby step number 3. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Whatever you need to live off of for a month, save that amount for a big enough number that it would cover you for 3 months if you have 2 incomes or multiple sources, a very reliable income stream with multiple sources of income, or 6 months if you're a single income household, right? If you need $2,000 a month, you need $6,000 to $12,000 in the bank. If you have a spouse and they make $1,000 and you make $1,000, then you could lean more towards the 3-month, because if you lose your income, their income will still support you for 50% of it. If you're single income and you lose your income, then you have no income and you need that to live on. Otherwise, you're going to quickly get your debt back. So you need that to keep you, to help in like that. The $1,000 emergency fund in the beginning it's not going to get you very far. It's going to cover a couple of weeks or one problem. That's just to get started, so you have enough in the bank, a little peace of mind, so you can focus on your debt. That's all it is. You need I would lean more towards the 6-month, and with the crazy inflation happening in a lot of places in the world, with COVID happening, there's a lot of uncertainty. I would lean more towards the 6, maybe even go higher than that. 8 months, 9 months. Beyond that, you might be a little excessive. You might be better off actually starting to save in the next few steps. But just make sure you're fully covered. Also, make sure and realize that if something happens where you lose your income, you got to go into immediate frugal mode for the most part. Right? Within a couple, all right, we don't need the cable that much. We don't need this. We don't need that. If you already have, another thing about the debts, if you have a $30,000 car loan and if you have $100,000 in debt and you got a $30,000 car loan, you could get rid of 20 of that by selling it and buying a $10,000 car. And I wouldn't want to do that either unless I had $100,000 in debt, and then I would. So you can pay off your debt quicker if you just get over keeping up with the Joneses. All right. A lot of times we buy things we don't really need to impress the people that we don't really like. As the saying goes. So, baby step number 4. So after you have this emergency fund, you stash it in savings. It's not in a CD. It's not in the stock market. It's not in real estate. It's in a liquid fund. It is in a bank account that could be where you could take the money without penalty whenever you need it, as quickly as you need it, within a day or two, right? I would recommend a high yield bank account. There are plenty of these that offer a higher percentage than the typical bank savings, checking, or money market account. These are called a high yield account. They're specifically designed for people that will probably leave their money there most of the time with larger sums. It's meant for these emergency funds. And you kind of have to shop around a little bit, search around, look, and know also that they change around quite a bit to attract people. So I've seen some that are I found one that's the highest on the market. I dumped my money there and I just think it's fine. I'm just building a little bit of interest. It's in a safe place. And then I'll come back, I might check 3-4 years later and go, oh, wow, they're not even a good interest rate anymore. They went down and other companies went up. And so you might, now I'm not saying flip flop and move it every 3 months, but maybe once a year, evaluate where are we at. Keep an eye on it. And it might not hurt to have 2 or 3 accounts that are open. And if you need to move the money once a year, be smart with it. That it's once you have that emergency fund, it's a decent amount of money. And I just looked recently. I had one account that used to be pretty high. I checked it last week and it was a 1%. And I'm like, what? And I had that one account and I think I had $12,000 in it. And 1% of that, I think when I ran a calculator was what was it? I want to say $120, $140 a year maybe. And then I found another one that had a 2.21 interest rate. And the difference was like $180 or $200 more. I'm like, wow, okay. That's a no-brainer. I'll move that thing. I'll spend an hour or two moving it. And it'll make me $200 more next year. It's $100 an hour worth of my labor, right? So, and if you have a $4,000 a month expenses or $5,000 a month, your emergency fund is going to be significant. Well, you could be talking $1,000 difference if you don't shop around. So look for one and then keep an eye on it. Maybe once a year or so, just do a quick, you know, spend a half hour or an hour just looking around, just make sure that it's still good. Don't let them keep your money if they're going to lower that rate. Let them, like, no, you got me here. Don't, you know, don't bait and switch me. You got me here because I thought you had high interest rates. Don't go and lower them once you got me. All right. After you have your emergency fund, baby step 4, invest 15% of your household income in retirement. So 15% of your household income in retirement. Put it towards, a lot of people use 401ks, especially if your job will match it or match portions of it. That's good. You can always use IRAs and that kind of thing. Other people will get into real estate and other things. If you, and mutual funds and so forth, whatever learn about different vehicles that build interest, that are safe vehicles to put your wealth, to put your money, and grow it there. Plan for the future. Don't let the government take care of you in your old age. They're not going to do a very good job of it. Don't make society take care of you either. Plan now. The Bible says, don't be a sluggard. Learn from the ant. When things are good, stockpile the resources. And then during the famine, you'll be able to take care of your needs and ideally to help bless others as well. And so start saving for retirement. Baby step number 5, save for your children's college fund. I think this is, I can't remember he doesn't say what percentage. I've gone to a couple different types of college. I've gone to sort of a traditional school for, right out of high school. I went and got a degree in marketing and advertising and graphic design, web design stuff. Then years later, I became self-employed and I brought myself through a bunch of different certification programs and personal training and health and fitness and, nutrition and life coaching and, all different kinds of stuff. And then I went through a program where I got my associates in divinity and bachelor's and associates in ministry and going towards a bachelor of divinity and all these other things, higher education. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's other vehicles that are more affordable. There's trade schools. There's even ways to bypass the first 2 to 4 years of your degree program by using things like CLEP and other smart vehicles. You have to be more of a do-it-yourselfer, but there are ways to get educated in a very affordable way. A lot of the colleges are insanely expensive. Now, obviously, if you have a certain idea in mind of what your kids might do, what you want them to do, then you're going to have to save more for that. But remember, this isn't our money, it's God's money. So save for that, but don't neglect the kingdom work because you'd rather your children become doctors. And there's something also about buying your children cars that they don't have to earn and pay for themselves, or buying your children's college that they don't have to pay for themselves. You will take care of your car more if you pay for it yourself. You will treat your college more seriously if you have to pay for it yourself. I know people who just didn't try that hard, either with their car or with their college, And 20 years after college, they're not even using that degree and they don't even care. And they're still paying the loan off. My parents, saved some money for college, but also got a loan for part of it. And I paid 1/3 of it. And I agreed to that. And I thought it was a good idea at the age of 18 or 19. And I worked hard and I cared about my classes and I busted my butt and I got, I think, a 3.6 GPA. Now, I was a mess in high school for most of it. Go watch last week's testimony episode. Yeah, I was a mess. But by the time I went to college, I started to have my head on straight. And I was happy to pay for it and I took care of it. And I also bought my first car. I paid $1,800 for it. And my parents didn't give me, I don't think, any of that money. I mean, they might have given me a few $100 in a birthday gift or something. But the rest of it, I worked hard making minimum wage. And I'm dating myself, but I think minimum wage at the time was $4.50 an hour. I'm not that old. I'm 41. Don't let this fool you. Makes me look 50. So, but still, it takes $4.50 an hour. It takes a long time to get $1,800. All right. So that's okay. It builds character. So save money for your kids' college, save money for cars and other things to help them. But don't think that you need to coddle your children. Let them work hard and learn how to appreciate money, how to manage money themselves so that they don't buy a bunch of stuff that they can't afford, get a bunch of debt, and then struggle for the rest of their lives. Teach them the lessons that they need so that they don't get to a place where they will struggle forever as well. All right. Baby step number 6, pay off your home early. After you have all this other stuff to take care of, attack your home. I like this strategy. I think it's a good way to do it. Some people would say, no, just get a loan out on your house and then buy more properties and so forth. We can have another episode where we talk about investing and real estate and all this kind of stuff. And look, I'm not a financial guru. I'm here as a pastor and as a teacher, but I do have some training and some knowledge in a lot of these things. I've coached people for a long time. I've helped people for a long time. I think if you need a simple strategy to do, that's worth considering, pay off your home early. And then if you want to still get another, like if you're okay with some debt, Dave Ramsey would keep you completely out of debt. And I'm okay with that if you want to do that as well. But if the mortgage rates are really good and really low interest, then you can always get another house, get another loan after that first house is paid off of. And you could always rent out the other one that's already paid for and then use your normal monthly payment that you were used to paying plus the rental income of the other property and put both of those towards, and any extra income towards this new property. You'll pay it off twice as fast, if not more than that, right? Once you get rid of all your car debt and all the credit cards and all that, you might be able to put 3 times as much towards your mortgage every month, right? Because now your income's higher because you have rental property income. And all of that will go towards this. You pay that off, you'll save even more in interest rates if you only get like a 10 or 15 year loan as opposed to a 30-year. The longer the term, the more interest, significantly more, right? I remember when I was looking at the $100,000 range, if I did a 30-year loan, I would pay $270,000 for it. And so that'd be $170 in interest. If I did the exact same loan at the exact same interest, actually usually get a better interest rate as well if you have a shorter loan for 15 years, and it would have been like, I think it was 180 or 190. It was like half as much interest. And the payment was only like $200 more a month. It wasn't even that much. And I'd save that much money and pay it off that much quicker. And then if you went down to a 10-year loan, it was only like 40,000. It was only like 30,000 or 40,000 in interest. And you pay it off in 10 years. And it only added like another 100 and 150 to the monthly payment. Significant. Don't give all that money to the bank. Stay as close to debt free as possible. Now, because why would you want to do that instead of just saving up money in cash and then just buy a house cash? Because possibly, you have this rate all in savings, earning 1 or 2% or 3% low interest that whole time, while real estate on averages about 10% growth a year on average since the 1920s. Maybe 6, 8%, 12%, 15%, depends on the, what's going on with the economy and the region and all that. But that house may go up in value 10% a year as well. So that's a lot of money to be missed. I know people around here who bought, in my area, who bought a $200,000 house and sold it 6, 7 years later for over 400,000. The market just went crazy around here. I don't think it's worth it. Personally, it'll probably come back down a lot, or it just keeps going up. Like it will be like California soon enough. I hope not, but it's, but if you can capitalize on that growth, then you can quickly gain wealth. So be smart, try to get out of debt as quickly as possible, and then use these kinds of strategies to help pay off the home early. And you could just not have any payments. How sweet would that be? You have like 75% of your income. You could do whatever you want with. You can travel, you can do mission work, you can give to the church, you can be involved in lots of meaningful things. And right? Or you could buy a second. Matter of fact, if you bought a second property, the same price as your first one and rent out the other one, you could take that payment and pay off the second one with it. And then you won't pay it off quickly, but then if it goes up in value in real estate, it's kind of like, well, they're paying for it, not you. But I like the domino effect where if you get one house, you pay it off, and then that seems like, oh, I'm doing all that. I don't want to wait until I have my second house when I'm older. But then you get the second house and you take the multiple payments towards that one. Now you pay off that one in 15 years or 10 years. Pay that one off. Now the third one, you take all those payments, put it towards the third one, and now you pay it off in 4 years. Do it again. Now you pay off the fourth one in 2.5 years. You pay off the fifth one in 1 year. You see what I'm going with this? Before you know it, you got 6, 7 or more properties. And if you stop buying properties, all the rent on those could give you a full salary to be completely financially independent. You wouldn't even need a 401k. These are good options. It's not rocket science. It just takes discipline. Maybe, and then you could always meet somebody who's really in a tough spot in the future. They don't have a place to live. I'll let you stay in one of my places rent free for 3 months. Be in church. Serve. Do all the stuff you're supposed to be doing. And, and we'll help you out. That's something you can't do if you're up over your head in debt, right? You can't bless others. We want to use the money to advance God's kingdom and to bless others. And then number 7, baby step 7, build wealth and give. Build wealth and give. The more you do it, the more potential you can for the kingdom. Now, if you do all this so that you can just keep buying yourself bigger houses, or more cars or more stuff, move to a better area, then you did it all for you. That's why we have to start out with stewardship. But if you're doing it for God, you can use that wealth for good. Money is not evil. The love of money is evil. And the only reason it is because you use it for yourself. It's selfish. It's selfish and often poorly managed. So that's the 7 steps that I would use. Stop gambling if you're gambling. Gambling is just like the interest on debt. It's always working against you. You are statistically going to lose gambling. Now, yeah, maybe, the lottery in the United States, it's crazy high sometimes. Maybe there's a crazy. Now, if you want to spend $1 on a lottery ticket because if the winner gets 500 million, I'm okay with that. Whatever. It's not a big deal. If you want to spend $1 on scratchers every week or so, that's fine. But no, it needs to be a very small percentage, less than 1%, less than 0.5%. I would only, some people like to get, so some people are in the Christian church are like, all gambling is evil and sinful. The only reason, so the Bible never says thou shalt not gamble, to my knowledge. What it does say is we don't own any of this. It's God's. Don't throw away God's money on foolish things. Now, this principle is true in a lot of different ways. So I know some people who they'll see somebody go and, gamble. And let's say they play poker with friends and everybody puts in $20 and you get to hang out with your friends for hours. And, the winner, let's say you got 8 people, the winner takes away $160. But it only costs everybody $20. And at the end of the night, if you got to hang out with friends all night for $20, it's not that expensive of a night. And they'll say, but that's a sin because it's gambling, because it's bad with money and this and that. And then they'll go out and, go to a sporting game or something and spend $200 for one night, for one day. And it's like, but you spent way more money for the same amount of time. So don't be so quick to judge about those things. The real thing is, what are we doing with our money? And like I said, I'm okay with it. And I believe the Bible is okay with it, which is why I'm okay with it. That we can do things that are fun. You can enjoy some of your money, but it's not your money. It's God's money, and he lets you use some of it for your enjoyment. Remember that order. And so if you use a little bit in gambling, I'm okay with that. And as crazy as it is to hear a pastor say that, I don't care if they want to come against me and tell me I'm blasphemous, whatever. Because, the same people say, well, that's gambling and that's evil. And they have $1,000 worth of shoes, right? And a $700 watch and a $30,000, $40,000 car. Okay, don't get on somebody because they gambled away $500, right? When you are blowing way more money, it's all about stewardship. What are you doing with the money? That's what matters, right? And the percentage. If you make $100,000 a year and you gamble $500, it's 0.5% of your income. Now, if you make $20,000 a year and you gamble $2,000, right? Now you're spending 10% of your income on this. It's extremely unbalanced. This is no longer a recreational activity. It's a bad habit and a vice and a bad stewardship of God's money. That's the principle. So evaluate what you're doing with all of this stuff and make sure you're stewarding it for God's glory the best way you're able to. So that leads me to the tithe and the offering we talked about in episode 18. Do not do all this stuff and then try to make God baby step 8. He comes before step number 1. He's there the whole time. Don't neglect God. Giving to God's people for God's kingdom, for kingdom purposes, is more important than you having the peace of mind of your emergency fund. It's more important than you taking care of God's kingdom now is more important than what you do 30 years from now in your retirement. You taking care of God's kingdom now is more important than whether or not your children get to go to college. Your children may go to college, become highly educated, go out and get amazing jobs with high income potential, become doctors and lawyers and surgeons, and they may hate God and be blasphemous, wicked sinners for the rest of their life. Just because they're educated doesn't mean that they won't be awful people. Hitler was intelligent. A lot of the really wicked people of human history have been intelligent. Satan is intelligent. Don't make education more important than godliness, than in doing God's work. Before you worry about putting 10% away for children's college, put 10% towards the church and for kingdom purposes and get your children involved in that place. They need to be in the church more than they need to be in a college. God comes first before you pay off your house. And of course, when you're building wealth and giving, that is the goal, is to give extremely generously. Don't build up that wealth for you. And also, let me even say this. Don't even just build the wealth even for your children and your grandchildren and other people, because there is something about the hard work ethic it takes to earn a living and to take yourself, to buy your own car, to take yourself through college and all that. So don't rob them of that. If you just look at statistically, the people who are like trust fund babies whose parents were extremely wealthy and they gave them all this stuff, they're like spoiled rotten brats who are arrogant and they don't appreciate money. They don't help the poor. They don't help anybody else. That is a disservice to them. So you're saving all this money to bless them, and then the exact opposite happens. So know all that going forward and let them know, even if we build all this wealth, it's so we can bless the kingdom and to do all this amazing stuff for the world. It is not so that you guys can be instant multimillionaires when you're 18 or 21 or whatever. Don't do that. Yeah. And you build all that into the habit by putting God first in all of these steps. All right. So that's the plan. That's the plan, guys. I'm going to take a look at some of your guys' chats. Have any questions? All right. I see a question. Good. So let's see. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Fitness Health. Good to see you guys. Said, I hate gambling, but the little scratch cards are fun on rare occasions. Yeah. It's, and it's, I don't really do it. I don't really gamble at all, to be honest. Many years back, I went to, and also, by the way, some people have a real problem with gambling. And so know who you're around. if people have an issue with gambling or shopping addiction or other vices and bad habits like that, just be mindful of that. Help them understand these principles. For some people, they shouldn't gamble at all. Just to be clear, some people should not gamble at all because they have a problem. Some people shouldn't have a card with an open limit because they have a shopping addiction or something like that. So we just need wisdom. It's not our money. Don't let Satan keep your heart by keeping you addicted to these kind of things. But many years ago, I went to Hard Rock. We did a vacation. I did a family vacation with a bunch of people in my family, and we're at a Hard Rock casino. And I mean, obviously, really nobody in my family really gambles a lot. So we went there for the pools, and it's right there it's on an island on the beach in Dominican Republic, and zip lining and horseback riding and all kinds of stuff. We weren't there for but we figured we're there at the casino. And so we figured one night we'll hop in there for an hour or two, which is a very balanced way to treat. It's not like the people who go all the time, even though they're in debt to their eyeballs and they think they're going to make it big. You're delusional. Stop it. Stop it. I know people who have stayed in debt and stayed in poverty for decades, and they keep gambling every year, like going out on vacations and gambling and doing gambling trips and stuff. And it's like, you think you're going to get wealthy, and I've literally watched you go backwards as long as I've known you. It happens, guys. There's a reason we should avoid it. It's like alcohol. Some people should just steer clear of it completely because they don't have self-control. It's a fruit of the spirit, Galatians 5, and we need moderation. So, but anyway, I went there the one night, and I said, I had $20. I said, all right, it's my $20. This is my gambling money. When I run out of that, it's done. And so, played a few slots, played blackjack a couple of times, and and it went away really quickly because it's a losing game. So, but if you take your time and you walk around and you're sociable and all that, I think my $20 lasted me 2 hours. If you get 2 hours of entertainment out of it, you're doing pretty good, right? I could go watch a movie for 2 hours. And if I decided to get the decent popcorn, and I'll probably spend $20 too. It's not any different than that. As long as you have moderation and self-control, and it's not a lust. You don't have a lust for the money thing, right? When you're doing all this other stuff and you're like, even if I get it big, I'm going to give 90% away, or whatever. So it's just don't be controlled by money. Serve God. So, all right. But yeah, I know some people. So yeah, I said all that part of this because I had and sorry to call them out, but it is what it is. I had a church I was part of many years ago that I wasn't a pastor there or anything. You guys don't worry about who it is, but they had one of those agreements that were like, all the stuff you wanted to agree to, and it said like, I will not gamble. Or something. It was like very definitive like that. Like, I will not do this. And I'm just like, why you got to be so harsh about it? Like my little thing I just shared about the Hard Rock, and that was like 7 or 8 years ago, I think. And I don't know that I've gambled since then. Other than I think sometimes for Christmas, my mom will give me a stocking with like 1 or 2 scratchers in it. Technically, I'm gambling, but do I really have a problem? No. So let's not be weird and legalistic and fanatical about this stuff. And so, but anyway, they said don't gamble. I'm like, well, maybe you should just reword that and say you should be generous and be a good steward of your money and blah blah blah. And like, why don't you say what's important rather than don't gamble? You're just being legalistic. You're not even telling people what they need to know. You're not even making sure they agree with that. What if I don't gamble, but I'm extremely selfish with my money? What if I'm trying to buy myself a multi-million-dollar house? Doesn't that count for something? What if my heart is completely wrong when it comes to money? And yet I agreed I won't gamble and I'll pay my tithe. And therefore that's all we need to know. You won't gamble and you'll pay your tithe. That's come on. Come on, church. We can be better than that. We can be better than that. And so, at least at this ministry, you're going to hear the truth. The truth is, God wants your heart, not you to follow some rules on paper that sound good and they're easy to explain. Yeah, me giving you this message, which was an hour and a half, took longer than me saying, just say this: I will not gamble. I will pay 10% to church. And your heart could be full of all kinds of greed and all kinds of other problems. Come on. Come on. All right. I had to say that. So, all right. Here's a question from Sarah. I believe Dave Ramsey says to not do offerings until we are debt free or something. But tithing is sort of an offering. Any thoughts? I am not aware of that. Now, when I went through the Total Money Makeover book, it was probably at least 15, 16, 17 years ago. It was a long time ago. I might have listened to it again like 10 years ago just for fun. But I'm not 100% sure what he says or what he does. I would say until you're debt free. Well, no, because your mortgage counts as your debt, and some of the other big things that may take years and years and years to pay off are also part of your debt. And so I wouldn't neglect the kingdom work just because of that. Yeah, I wouldn't personally. I don't think that that's what God would want. I think that is it tithing is a sort of offer. I mean, some people separate tithes from offerings. They say tithe is the first 10% and the offering is sort of everything above that 10%. I guess, I mean, that's okay, I guess, if you want to understand it that way. In that other tithing video, I explained kind of what it all means a little bit more thoroughly. And so you can kind of see how I understand these words and what they mean. I mean, technically, all money you give is an offering. Technically, you're offering it to God. And so, as far as being debt free, I would say, and I think actually Dave Ramsey would probably say to give the 10% tithe before you're even doing all of the other stuff as well. Maybe I would agree with that. Maybe I could see a place where yeah, I guess I could probably see that. I think for a lot of people, they need to sell something that's too expensive that they already own. And then they'd be in a healthier place. And then they could tithe and all that. And I've already explained before, I don't think tithe is always to the local church unless the local church is really doing a lot of things that are also part of the kingdom vision. I think if the local church is only taking care of that local church and it's like a selfish thing, then I don't know that I would want to give 10% of all my income to it. But some good local churches are very missional, very kingdom forward, very, they're not just hoarding it up for themselves either, right? Because the whole thing is, as individuals, we don't want to be greedy and hoarding it all up for ourselves. And so if you feel like your church is being greedy and hoarding it all up for themselves, then like, okay, I can't help you do that, right? So churches need to be transparent about these things, about where their money goes to. I think some churches even have like budgets and all that, and they share it with the congregation. They put it in the bulletins and stuff. I like that. I think it's good. Not every church does that. I think there's something good to it. Even if we don't give exact numbers, I think at the very least, the church culture should talk about kingdom advancing agenda that these resources are being used for. And not just the money, but our time and our talent and and spiritual gifts and everything. So hope that helps. Let's see. I think I feel physically ill when I lose money gambling. Yeah, because you're losing. Yeah, you're losing money. You're like that. Let me double check and see if any questions came in during this week. Okay, I got a couple. Let's see. Question: do you recommend any apps or programs that automatically sort your spending into categories? I've tried using the app Mint, but in my own experience, it kept messing up my customized categories. I've tried Mint before as well. I don't recall it messing up my categories. I know you can manually adjust them. And so that, it's up to you whether that's a blessing or not. I don't have it at hand. I make some simple, actually, let me see. Let me give you guys, this is professional. Uno momento. Let's see. Here we go. Let me see if I can help a little bit. I'm a weird freak who does things. So I made my own custom forms and stuff over the years. It was overkill. I probably didn't need to do all that. But even some of the ones, here's some ideas. And you can make your own. Here, let's do this. I'm just going to do this, and you can take a screenshot of it. Let's see. I'll leave that up long enough to see. All right. Now I'll quickly read it. Basically, here's an idea of what your things might look like. Item: charitable gifts. So this would be your tithes, offerings, kingdom stuff. Recommend a percentage 10 to 15%. Money you put into savings, right? Emergency fund stuff, saving for future vacations, whatever, 10 to 15%. Housing, 25% to 35%. Home insurance, if you include home insurance with that, you might go 35 to 40%. Utilities should be around 5 to 10%. That's your water, your sewer, your cable, internet, electric, trash. Food, 5 to 15%. Transportation, 10 to 15%. Clothing, 2 to 7%. Medical and health, 5 to 10%. Insurance, 10 to 25%. And I would reduce that if you have home insurance under that part, under the housing. Personal saving or personal spending, pleasures, 5 to 10%. That might include, or that's just like taking care of like toiletries and that kind of stuff, things around the house. Recreation, 5 to 10%. And debts, 5 to 10%. So that should give you a pretty good idea. You could just get a little piece of paper, write all that down. And, at the very top, it's pretty simple. Let me see. And there's forms and stuff. Sometimes it's really, let me see if I have any that aren't filled out. Sorry if this is like rustling in the background, being obnoxious to you guys. I know that I don't really. I know Dave Ramsey has some worksheets. I can't show it to you because it has my stuff in it, but basically a 1-page worksheet, and it just says monthly cash flow plan. And literally you just say, here's my monthly take home pay. And then underneath that, you've got all these categories, and you just start subtracting. And you want to end up with around 0 at the end or a little bit left over. And it's as simple as that. You track it every month or so. Make sure your numbers are in the right percentage, and you continue to work your way through these things, and keep your eyes on God and do it for his glory. And he's going to empower you to do this. He will take care of you. All right. Let's see what other questions we got. Can you walk through step by step in detail what you do to budget? Do you have specific programs you use? Do you save receipts? To be honest, at one point in time, I was very detailed in it. Probably so much so, in fact, that's something the Lord has helped me understand, that sometimes you get so detailed with anything, right? This is my personal life, my organizational system, my businesses, different things I've done, career, education. Sometimes we get so intricate in the details, we're kind of missing the big point. The reality is that 1-page thing, here's what I brought in, here's where the money went. Let me keep improving it. Right? Keep it simple. There's an old acronym, KISS, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So I would say keep it simple. It's kind of like this with counting calories. In my former career, I did some personal training, helping people lose weight and stuff. And I still do it a little bit with the life coaching, the Christian life coaching. By the way, for those of you who want to support the ministry and get help with something specifically, here, empoweredchristian.org/schedule. And you can schedule Christian life coaching, pastoral counseling, ministry training. Maybe you need help with budget. If it will help empower you to advance the kingdom of God, I'll help you do it. All right. And maybe you got all your finances already put in order, in which case, let me put this one up. There's the donate button, empoweredchristian.org/donate. Had to do it, guys. You can do subscription payments and all that, but I would encourage you to join the membership, empowered365.net, in which case you can support our ministry as well as get all the other courses and all the other things that we have available on there. You can go check it out. There's lots of different stuff that's included in different levels, different tiers, all kinds of stuff. But I would keep it simple. I often save receipts, but that's because I'm writing off business expenses. I save receipts, be smart about it. Definitely take advantage of every tax thing you can. Write off all the taxes. Keep track of all your donations that you make to tax exempt organizations and to church. Try to be a faithful steward with all of it. I would say I don't use any specific. My point with the fitness nutrition thing was when I was first, either trying to gain lean body mass or lose body fat, I had to kind of pay attention to these numbers pretty closely, because it's really easy to miss your goal if you're not paying attention to it. But once you kind of get to a good place after, a year or a couple of months, whatever, however long it takes you to get to where you're in a good spot, you can kind of be in maintenance mode and you really don't have to worry about it that much. And to be honest, Both my diet for the most part, as well as my finances. I mean, every so often I might need to be a little bit more diligent for a little while just to focus on something. But for the most part, I haven't worried too much about it for the last decade, to be honest. Either one of them. It's you don't. It's really good. Like I want to encourage you guys to really not only do this for the kingdom aspect, for God, for good stewardship, for all that, but one of the great perks is there's a lot of peace in just not stressing about money. There really is. Just knowing God's going to take care of it and he will bless. He said, if you do these things first, I'll take care of you. And so but he's not going to take care of your finances if you're being foolish, if you're being selfish, if you're neglecting him, if you're neglecting what's important, and if you're serving yourself. We read that parable in the beginning. It is a very wicked thing to poorly steward what God has given and trusted you with. He's entrusted it to you. Take care of it. And and I would say just keep it simple. I don't use any specific. I've used Mint. It's okay. My bank also has some budgeting things. To be honest, this simple little one-page thing, I probably should make. I'd maybe be a little better if I did it every single month. And maybe I will. Maybe God would bless my finances more if I was a little bit more disciplined with it. Just being transparent, guys. I'm not perfect either, but and that actually has been a goal recently, which has made me think about all these things to help others. Sometimes helping other people is what makes me think I could benefit from a refresher in that as well. And so here's a question. Once a person has gotten the method down, how much time should it take to budget on average per month? It doesn't take long. An hour, maybe. Shouldn't take long. Most stuff doesn't change that much. My little form, you can download this from Dave Ramsey's website, this form, by the way. It's free. And I just fill mine out in pencil. Here's how much I made, and maybe you earn about the same amount every month. So it's really easy. You just keep that the same. All right. That should make most of these numbers, like your mortgage is going to stay the same. Your a lot of times my electrical, I would just like do an average of what it is. And sometimes you can get on the payment plans and stuff where they'll average it out and manage it for you. So that way it doesn't even shift around. So yeah, for the most part, it shouldn't, you should already have savings where you cover those one-off weird things that pop up. And you're like, okay, we got leave extra in the budget for that stuff because it'll happen. Plan for stuff to happen because it will. So don't let it surprise you. Like, I can't believe something happened that we didn't plan for. Yeah, that's life. Don't worry about it. It's gonna happen. It shouldn't take that long. My question: my spouse and I have a difficult time keeping our food spending down, whether it be for eating out or grocery shopping. Do you have any tips? When you go grocery shopping, plan what you're going to get before you go there. So write down, here's the meals we're going to eat this week, the main meals. I don't have that quickly accessible either, but I had an old part of my journal, like it was kind of like one of those daily journals that you carry around with you with an organizer, and it's got your calendar and your daily to-dos and all that kind of stuff. And it had on the back, here's the meals that and basically is like it said meal, breakfast, every day, lunch every day, dinner every day. And then you just write down, okay, I'm going to eat for lunch. I'm going to do this for lunch. I'm going to do this for dinner. I'm going to do this for breakfast. And then on the back, you have your ingredient list. Here's all the things I need to make that we don't already have. And then when you go, buy that. Buy that instead of whatever you see. And so that will help a lot, because then you're buying what you need, not necessarily all the things that look good when you're going by. And maybe say, okay, I'll grab a couple things that are just, oh, that looks good, but just a hand, like, you'll know, like, okay, I've already grabbed 4 or 5 things, 6 things already. That's enough. That's extra stuff that we don't need because I already have all the meals covered. So these are mostly snacks and other things that aren't necessary, that aren't healthy usually either. It's stuff that looks good that they try to get you with. I would say one thing I did when I was on a really tight budget, I went in saying, what is the bare minimal amount I could spend? Like, I remember I was single shopping for one, and I'm like, how much money should a single man who likes protein, so I need to get my meat, and I eat fairly healthy, so, high quality stuff still. Usually you can kind of let most of your shopping be on the outside perimeter, which is going to be your dairy, your meat, your vegetables, your fruit, right? And you only need to go down a couple other aisles, maybe a little bit of, something here or there, some cereal or whatever, toiletries, water, and that kind of stuff. Most of the important stuff's on the outside perimeter. And so, and what I would do is I would count backwards. I remember at one point I was trying to spend, I think, $70. And I'm like, I went in there and I'm like 70. And I'd throw a couple of yogurts in my cart. Just rough. Don't be a weird freak about the numbers. Just average it. Just guess. Throw a couple in. 67. In my mind, I'm thinking this, not out loud like a weirdo. Go down, grab a milk. 64. And I would count. And I'd know when I get to 0, I'm done. So you think about it, you're counting, you're like, do I really need that? Not really, because I'm getting low already. And so that helps you keep it down as well, because you're very mindful of how much you're spending. That's a trick. Another trick is don't go hungry. Eat something before you go to the store. When you go on an empty stomach, the hormones that trigger that that food craving, they start activating, and they're like, you need food. So that looks good. That looks good. That looks good. And you start you're not thinking about the money, and you start dumping it all into your cart. And you wait until the very end, and then you find out what the damage is, and it's too late. So be very mindful, maybe do that number counting thing. Same thing when you're also grocery shopping. Other tips that are good. Look at the per item quantity price. So it'll say, let's say you see something, it says $2, and it'll say per item underneath that in smaller print. It'll say there's 4 and it's 50 cents per item, something like that. And then like say with paper towels, and then you look next to that and you see something and you're like, it's $4, so it's twice as much. But then you look down and it says per item 36 cents instead of 50 cents, and you're like, oh, it's actually a better deal. And so shop like that. And so you can pay attention to a lot of items. You can compare and contrast. Oh, this looks like a better deal. Is this better? I go with a lot of name or a lot of off-brand stuff if I know it's good quality still, right? So over here we have Publix. There's Walmart. There's other brands, other stores. A lot of times they have the same ingredients and the same quality. Same with medicines and all that stuff. A lot of it's fine. Also look for sales. Buy the stuff on sale. Don't be so like, I have to get my thing. Like, have a few items that you really like, a preferred brand, the way they do it. But the stuff that doesn't matter, just buy the cheaper stuff. And you don't have to buy the cheapest stuff. try to find that balance between a good value. Say like, well, this one's like the absolute bottom one. This one's really high. And then maybe this one right here in the middle is like a good balance between affordability and quality. And so find that. This is all forms of good stewardship. It's God's money. It's God's money. And so that way when you splurge and get the high quality thing, like, oh, that dessert, I really like that dessert. Or that whatever it is, right? Like I really like that. So I like that's gonna be one of my luxuries this week. That's gonna be one of my luxury foods. And it's like I could get this version for $7, but the really good one's 10, and I'm gonna get the $10 one. Like, but then it, like it's a treat. It's a luxury. It's it's a reward for a life well lived, and it's and you're thankful. And when you eat that, you're like, thank you, God, that I get to enjoy this. Thank you for it. He's a good father. He wants to give his children good gifts. And so we don't have to completely neglect ourselves. But the other stuff, like, do you really care what kind of paper towel? Like, it's people spend so much money on the weirdest stuff. Like, yeah, it's look at all that. You can spend 30% less by just paying attention to those numbers easily. And sometimes you don't even know, and you have to look around and you start shopping and comparing. And you're like, oh wow, the one I get is this much and is literally 40% more expensive than the other one right next to it. That's a different brand. So, when you're eating out, be mindful of the cost of everything. It also depends how much you go out. Eating out on average definitely costs more. So there's a cost to it. It costs you more. What you save in time or in inconvenience, you pay for it in a different way. So you're trading your money for your time then. Maybe you have a lot more money than time. And what I would say to some people, and this is also true in the church with activities we do, like if you make, let's say you have a really successful career where you earn a lot of money, and let's say you make $100 an hour, and you say, we're going to go out to eat, and and then it'll cost this much. And it would be 30% cheaper, 50% cheaper if we stayed home and cooked. But I'll have to cook for 2 hours. So technically it's costing me $200 of time to save $30 in food. Right? So we want to so if we want to manage and steward that well, then there's a trade-off there. And so it might actually make more sense to just work another hour and then go out to eat. Same thing if you like to mow your own lawn, right? And you make $100 an hour. You're like, I like to mow my lawn, and I'm mowing my own lawn, and it takes 10 hours a week or 10 hours a month. Or I could pay somebody else to do it, and it costs them, and they charge $100 a month to mow the lawn. It's literally costing me $1,000 to do it myself. Or I could pay them $100. I could literally just work 1 hour, and now I have 9 hours of my life back to do something for the church or for the kingdom. Or I could work and make another $900. You see what I mean? So just realize that time is money, and think about all of these kinds of things when you're planning your activities, when you're planning what you spend your money on, and it will help you steward it better because you have a limited amount of all of it. And so we just want to be good stewards. So hopefully that helps. Also, like, yeah. Any other tips when eating out? Depending on what kind of restaurants you go to, you could go to early bird specials. It's a good way to do it. Go to places where the children eat free. If your children don't eat all of their food, either make them or say you're only allowed to get what you're going to eat all of, or take it home and make them eat it next meal. Don't waste food. And when you don't finish something, doggy bag it up. It does not make you less. I say this to all the men out there. It doesn't make you less of a man to doggy bag your food. Sometimes I do it when I could eat all of it, but I don't need all the calories in that meal. Like, I don't need 1,200 calories in this meal. I feel content eating 2/3 of this. I'll save it and have a snack later. I'm not less of a man for doing that. I could eat it if I wanted to. Not that that would make me a man anyway. But at home, have snacks. Take advantage of specials and other things like that. Use coupons. But then again, just like I said with the time thing, don't spend 8 hours couponing to save $30. Right? Or let me put it this way. Don't spend 10 hours couponing to save $30. You just earned $3 an hour. A lot of times people don't think about stuff like that. I actually just saw somebody I was discipling earlier. I went and ministered to him, and I'm a local guy, and he had a bunch of change like the little rolls to roll up his coins. And actually, I saw somebody else, another guy I'm discipling a couple weeks ago, and did the same thing. And he was going to roll up all his change. And I was like, why are you going to do that? Like, they have machines that do that now. They have Coinstar and other ones. And yeah, they take like 10%, 12%. But think how much time you save. If you have $100 of coins and you spend 4 hours wrapping it all up, rather than going to a coin machine, putting $100 in it, and it takes 10%, and then you only have $90, but you did the whole thing in like 3 minutes, and it cost you $10. If you stayed home for 4 hours, rather than spending $10, you just paid yourself $2.50 an hour for 4 hours. That's bad stewardship of your time. Now, maybe you have maybe that's an activity that's actually recreational fun for you, and that's just as good as some actual fun thing. I don't know, whatever. Okay, then great. Then it counts as that. But if you think but know that you're doing it. Like, know that this is not good stewardship financially or with my time. This is just an act of recreation I'm choosing to do. That's fine. That's fine. You want to do that? That's fine. I do recreational stuff that doesn't, right? I iron my own clothes, and I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I've tried it. I never really timed myself, but it might be cheaper to go to a dry cleaner hourly wise. But I'll just watch a movie and do a bunch of ironing while I'm doing it. And so I'm kind of watching a movie anyway, so it doesn't really, I was going to do that either way. So, yeah, so just notice those kind of things. Do men feel less manly for doggy bagging their food? I think so. I've heard people be like, what, you're going to leave that? I've even said it to people, but I'm usually joking around. I'm like, what, you're going to leave that on your plate? Although that's not when they doggy bag it. That's when they just leave it. Because then I'm like, don't waste it. Don't waste food. Either eat it or bring it home, right? If you have 2 bites left, just eat it. Come on. There's starving people in the world. But yeah. And so, you don't know how I can budget for 1 hour. No, it's not that. There's not that many things. I think an hour seems right. Now I'm not saying all of your entire money management is done in 1 hour. I'm saying just the budgeting portion. So the whole bill paying process, I don't know. I use a lot of automated systems with my bank, so I don't have to like think about it I have kind of a pretty streamlined system. Maybe we can get into that on another day. So, but yeah, no, probably not. No, because your budget won't change that much. Once you create your budget, it's only if some expense that's out of the ordinary shows up, then you just tweak that, or you have more income than normal, in which case all you have to change is the top number and the bottom number, like, and maybe however much you're paying towards debt or something. And so, yeah, don't try not to be a slave to your systems. Like I said this earlier, I've done this. I've been this person. So I totally get it. Where I've been in a process of like decluttering stuff, and I'm extremely organized. All these drawers back here, files, well organized, labels printed out, and you name it. Extremely organized. But I've noticed over the years that sometimes my planning and my detail and all of that worked against me, where I'm actually not focusing on the main thing. I'm paying attention to the details, which has its place. It's good and sometimes, but sometimes we can get lost in the minutia, like in the minute small things. We can get lost in those and we miss the big picture. The big picture is what we need to focus the most on and let the details serve that. So sometimes we're paying attention to these little small things and they become a major distraction. We need to remember that the whole point is to be a good steward. And so if you are doing all this stuff to be a good steward of your money, and then you end up being a bad steward of your time, right? We're judged on our stewardship of everything, not just the money. And and honestly, money comes and goes. God can give us more money. Time, you're not going to get more time. It's actually the more precious commodity. So, let's see. How do you know how much money you spend for each category in your budget? I actually said that earlier. You weren't listening. I gave you the ranges, like, utilities, this percent to that percent, and this one, that. And what it does is there's the recommended percent, and then you write in what yours is. Try to aim for that. I mean, and ultimately, if you can get everything lower, great, right? Just because even if it's in that range, if you can get it lower, then great. Like, cable, people were paying a lot. Like my parents were spending a crazy amount for cable until just recently, even after years of me saying that's nuts. But they finally kind of, changed it, and YouTube has a pretty affordable cable. I think it's like $70 a month or something. But yeah, I'm like pretty much off of cable now for a lot of years. I have a little Apple TV, and I pay for one app called Peacock. And, other people use like Netflix or Hulu or, one of those kind of things. And they're all roughly $10-12 a month each. And so, yeah, I mean, some people spend $150 on cable. You could pick a couple of shows you like. There's one network, I forget what it was called, but it was like basically you can like add in just the stuff you like, the certain channels you want, and you pay for just those. And so pick a handful of shows each person in the house likes and say, we're going to build that and only pay for that. And yeah, get it way down. And then I changed my internet. I went and switched internet providers like in this past year, saving an extra $30 a month on that. I went and yeah, so I'm always looking to reduce costs. Now, obviously, I don't want the crappiest service. I want quality still. So I will pay more for quality if I need to, but I want to try to find that good balance between affordability and quality. I don't want quality like if I have to spend like there's always the balance. We always have, that's part of our stewardship. And so like I bought this mic. It's a good quality mic. The other one wasn't serving me, but there were plenty that were 5 times as much as this one. So I picked the one that had the good reviews and this and that and the right balance. It wasn't the cheapest thing, but it wasn't the most expensive one. It wasn't necessary. And so I try to find that sweet spot. I'm always shopping that way. I'm very frugal. Be frugal. And it doesn't, so frugal is not cheap. Cheap means you just look for the cheapest thing, even if it's low quality and you don't care. Frugal means you care about money and you're a good steward of it. When it comes to certain items, you'll spend even more. And then other items, you won't spend more. And some items, you will spend the bare minimum amount because it doesn't matter. Right? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I would buy a cheap version of. I don't know. I can't think of one, but so it's just a balance. What you spend, like what I personally spend, I don't know. How do you keep track of what you spend each month? Do you add up receipts or what? Well, it kind of depends. I would say certain stuff it's easy to know. I mean, if your bank has an online bill pay, check that out. Mine does. That's helpful because I can go in there and I can see all the stuff I pay right out of my bank. That's a monthly expense. I see how much I pay for insurance and, mortgage and all that kind of stuff. For things like food and other stuff around the house, there's a few different ways you can do it. So I'm kind of lax lately because, like I said, I'm pretty good about just staying kind of right in that sweet zone. And so I don't really worry too much about it. But like one of the things that Dave Ramsey says is just use cash, which helps you really be mindful about it. So let's say you give yourself, I guess it depends how big your family is. Like I said, I was using $70 a month for food or a week for food for one person. Let's say, a married family with a couple of kids might be, I don't know, 125 a week, maybe 150 a week. I'm not sure. But let's say it was 150. Sounds like so much. But so what you would do is you put in basically $600 into an envelope, and you on the front of the envelope, you call it groceries. And when that runs out, you don't have any more money for food. So it makes you be diligent with your shopping. If you are, and basically he would have an envelope system for like everything that way. I've never really done that. I know some people who've done it and who've gotten good results with it. It sounds like more hassle to me because I'm very digital. But I would say that what you could do is, if you know you got 150 a week, I would go in 150, buy something, 146, and round down too, by the way. Like a thing of milk is $3.99, counting it as $5. So I'm overdoing it in my own brain as I'm doing this, because I might find some things here and there, and the number might, but it's going to be pretty close. You're going to be like pretty close. You're going to be within $5 or something at the end. And then maybe you'll have leftover, right? So that's one way to do it. If you are going out to eat, I mean, if you could do all your grocery shopping for 150, just as a random number I picked, and then you go out to eat as a family and one meal costs you $70, you already see the problem. You're eating out at the wrong place. So, um, yeah, what you want to do is learn how to get good at using pasta and vegetables and rice and lean affordable meats, and learn how to get good with that stuff, and that way you can make a whole meal for 15 or $20. It's people did it for years and years, and our culture is just so spoiled. To be honest, we're spoiled. um and so there is, another thing that you could do is wait till things are on sale and buy them in bulk. Or maybe there's like those warehouses where you can buy stuff in bulk anyway, right? Walmart, like there's Sam's Club and there's Costco and things like that, where you can buy 5 pounds of chicken breast, 10 pounds of chicken breast or beef or different things, and buy it in bulk, freeze a lot of it, and take it out and say, okay, we need this much. And most people might need not as much protein as they think that they're eating. And you can use supplements and things to get extra protein in, because protein is usually the more expensive thing. But you could get a whole chicken, even at an expensive place like at the Publix near me. And I think it's like $8 for a whole entire chicken. That'll feed a whole family. Make a little rice or pasta for $1 or $2. Maybe a little bit of vegetables on the side, a couple extra bucks. There you go. Whole meal for $12, right? So I think we need to be more frugal. Even if you start doing this a little bit, you'll notice the savings big time. And so it all adds up. And so just be very mindful, and and there's other principles too, like fasting. Like, learn how to have discipline your body and make it obedient to you, rather than giving it whatever it craves, right? That's part of our thing, is we have to learn how to tell our body who's in control, who's in charge. Ultimately, we are, like, in that moment, and then ultimately God is. And we're surrendering, we're doing things for his glory, we're trying to please him, we're stewarding our money and all this stuff. So you see how this all kind of connects, like how you steward your money and your time and your body is all intersecting in this conversation. And at the end of the day, it's how we steward it shows where our heart is. And as we learn to be more disciplined with all these things, there's blessings. There'll be a lot of blessings that come from it. And then we will be empowered Christians. All right, I got one other question, and then we are wrapping up for the day. What are your thoughts on a husband and wife putting their money together versus separate? Depends what you mean. If you mean like joint checking account or single independence checking accounts, or like the husband has his paycheck go to his account and the wife gets her check, she goes that, and that's her spending and that's his spending. All of that is bad. Combine it. The two become one flesh. They share parts of their soul. They share their life. They share their heart, their mind, their ambitions, their time, their talent, their treasure. Why does money get to be the one thing that gets to stay separate? And so combine it all together. The only time I would leave some kind of separation is if there is like a serious gambling problem on one side, or serious shopping problems, shopping addiction, or if like divorce or something is like right on the horizon and you need to like protect yourself. in those cases, then it would be understandable to keep it separate, but no, it's not a good thing. Like the fact that you have to do it is a sign that there's a real problem, that you're trying to make the best out of a bad situation by covering yourself and protecting yourself and setting yourself up for success in the future by not letting the mistakes of one person like destroy you as well. And so if those things are happening, then it's okay. You have to do what you need to do, but it's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. As far as like a little bit of separateness, I would say, I mean, there should be room in the budget, especially once all these debts and other things have been taken care of, for like recreation and fun, in which case it's sort of like you can have like a fun budget. Like I gave the recreation one earlier. Maybe there's, and then there's a personal one. So maybe personal recreation, something in there where it's like, here's like our play money. And, maybe there's, let's say there's a bucket that's, let's say it was $200, and that's like the play money for the family. That it would be a problem if one spouse spends 175 of it and the other one gets 25. That's not good. And so maybe say, okay, right, let's divvy that into two $100 buckets, and we each get to do our 100 with what we want to do, right? Let's keep an even playing field, and if you blow through your 100, that's on you. Now maybe you want to be loving and generous and give, but it's a giving out of your generosity. It's not expected. It's not deserved. It's just love. And so, but that's an option. It's not something that's the other person just takes. And then it's like, I did it, whatever. So that would be my thoughts on that. All right. Fitness Health asks the question, Brian, what are your thoughts on prenups? That could be a complicated one. Let me give a quick few thoughts for right now, just because it's really late, as it relates to smart money management and stewardship. And if you want to ask that question again on another episode when I can unpack it a little bit more, I'm happy to do that. I have lots of thoughts on it. So I would say I think now, in an ideal world, we wouldn't need a prenup, right? Because just like I said a minute ago, we're combining all these things. We're combining our heart, our affection, our time, our living, our money, all this stuff. And as long as we're together, those things are together. And presumably the assumption and the expectation and the hope is that we stay together forever until death do we part. But a lot of the times that is not the case, unfortunately. And so sometimes people say a prenup is bad because it's like an easy out. It's like you're planning for it to fail. I think that's kind of a foolish idea. You're not planning for it to fail. You'd be protecting yourself if it does fail. So it's not a sign that you're planning it to fail. It's a sign of doubt that it might, however small that doubt is. Realistically speaking, a lot of marriages do end in divorce. And so I don't think it's it's like completely outside of the realm of possibility to think, what if this marriage didn't work out? And if And if it, and if it didn't, would I be willing to give away half of my assets that I had before we got together at that possibility? Now, I don't have a ton of assets. I'm not a super wealthy guy, but I think I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of a prenup, because what a prenup essentially says is, as long as we are married, we both own all this. We share it. It's 50-50, 100%. But if we get divorced, all the money I had before we got together was money that I had before we got together, and it'll also be my money if we separate. It says you don't get to earn half of what I have just because you tried to marry me. Right? So it's kind of a weird thing. Like, what if a person marries a person who's wealthy, and then, because it's you're saying equally, well, it's like you're planning it to fail. You could equally say it to the other person and say, you're planning it to fail. This prenup means nothing if we stay married. If we stay married forever, this will never come up ever again. Right? It works both ways. If you say, if we're in this for life and we both want that, you will have half of my assets. We equally own it. This only matters at all if we get divorced. And obviously, neither one of us wants that right now because we're getting married. So I think, you could say, yes, on one hand, a very wealthy person could say, I could easily get out of this marriage and still have all of my assets. And maybe that's an incentive to that person to get out of the marriage sooner. That's true. But also, without a prenup, the other person who had little means before the marriage might also come in saying, I could divorce this person in a year and get out of it, and then I can go and be single again, but I would also get a whole bunch of money too. So it's actually an incentive for them to want to get divorced if they're selfish and greedy, and you know what I mean? So there's a problem on both sides, regardless of which one you do. And it's a matter of semantics. So what I would do, I would write into the agreement in the prenup something that hurts both ways, right? A lot of them do this anyway. A lot of them will say, the prenup is like, they'll write into the prenup, like, okay, if there's adultery, then the other person will get very little of the assets, right? A lot of them have that kind of writing, which makes sense. Like, if you cheat on me and then we get divorced and you want to take half my money on top of that, like, that's crazy. That's really wicked. And so what if it said not only adultery, what about abandonment? What about an unwillingness to go to counseling? What about, excessive, you decide to start gambling it all away? What if you become hateful and unloving and abusive and violent and whatever else what if you become a raging druggie and alcoholic? What about all the other stuff besides adultery that's a problem that leads to divorce? And so you say, and I say, build into the prenup agreement penalty of any of this kind of stuff based on a demonstration of the evidence of it in a court of law, right? So this way, the person with all the wealth says, if I, the wealthy person, if I commit adultery, if I'm abusive, if I'm violent, if anything else, then I give this percentage of my assets to her if we get divorced. But if I'm not that, then I would only give this percentage, right? So it incentivizes them to be a good spouse. And then the other person who has little means says, if I am abusive and all this stuff, adulterous and all that, then I get this much in the divorce because I'm not willing to go to counseling. I'm not willing to do all this stuff. But if I'm doing all that good stuff and the other one's the bad one, then I get a greater percentage. So what it does is it incentivizes them to be a good spouse too. Right? And then if they stay together, they get to share everything equally. And then maybe they get a divorce, but neither one of them was really bad. And then there's a figure for that amount. Right? We tried and we're just not in, and that's, I mean, obviously in a Christian context, like you can't just say I don't feel it anymore. Like that's not a good enough excuse. But in legal documents, you work with the reality, not with the hopeful expectation of what it means to be a godly person. And so you're sort of like, we just don't want to be married anymore. It's not their fault. It's not my fault. Neither one of us, we don't hate each other. We just don't love each other anymore. We're just going to part. And then I think there's something in the middle that says, you give at least this much, which is a decent amount, right? Because the other person doesn't deserve to be divorced, right? It just didn't work out. But they did sacrifice part of their life. You could also even put a spectrum on there, right? You could do, here's another idea. just came off the top of my head. There is, what do they call that? It's such a good idea. Hold on, let me see. I can't think of the word. It is called. Oh, I don't know what it's called. Basically prorated. So let's say in a 401k, a lot of companies will do this. They'll say, we'll match, like if you give 5% to 401k, we'll match up to 5% and we'll put it in a fund. And if you only stay at this company for 1 year, we're only going to match 20% of it. But if you stay for 2 years, we're going to match 40%. If you stay for 3 years, we're going to match 60%, 80%, 5 years, 100%. I can't remember the word of what that's called. But basically it says we're willing to do this because we think it's good and we want to bless you. But we don't want to give you this blessing if you're going to up and leave the company soon anyway. So if we're going to do this for you, you have to equally show that you're equally in it with the company. So this way we're both all in. And so why not do that with a prenup? Right? This and the wealthy person may, instead of 1 to 5 years, maybe they do 1 to 20 years, right? Less than 5-year marriage, this amount, this percentage, let's say, 5 to 10 years, this percent, 15 to 20 years, this percent, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, whatever, right? Because what it does is it says, we really had a good run. You didn't marry me for my money. And you didn't do all the other abusive stuff we just talked about, because that would null and void the whole thing. And so what we're doing is we're making the prenup help us accomplish our goals. We're making our human desire for security, for financial security, and maybe even greed, support the institution that we both claim to value and honor. So rather than this prenup being this thing that divides us, like, let's use this thing to help us be the best version of ourselves so that because maybe that'll help sometimes, right? You might be tempted to commit adultery and be like, not only is it going to ruin my marriage, but I'm throwing away not only the marriage, but I'm throwing away the relationship. I'm sinning against God, and I'm also burning I'm going to be smacked out right on my butt without anything to show for if I do this. I'm sacrificing everything if I do this, which is the truth anyway, right? In God's eyes, when you do, like, there's a consequence to sin. So what it does is it discourages sin, and it encourages godliness towards one another and love towards one another. And it helps them become partners who both are on the same team with the same goal of longevity, and they both benefit together, right? Because the better the other spouse is, they're going to be like, yeah, now I'm good, and we're both doing what we're supposed to be doing, and it's pushing us in the direction we should be going in anyways. And we're just letting either fear or financial security or greed or any of it, all those things, we're sort of using it. It's kind of like what God does. He takes what Satan uses for harm and he uses it for good. We could even use greed, and we can be smart and wise and put it into this formula, and we can even make greed for money be used for good, right? And so rather than avoiding these things and be like, I'm right, you're wrong, and the other one, I'm right, you're wrong, we say, let's come up with a win-win agreement where we take both of our ideas, we bring them together, we come up with a compromise that's better than either one of our ideas in the first place, to prenup, to not to prenup. And we say, let's come up with a way that covers both of us and gives both of us even more than we could possibly ask for. Because now that the reason a person wants a prenup who's wealthy, it's to protect themselves, not if they're married. The other person gets 50% when they're married. It's to say, you can't just up and leave me for my money. And maybe I don't think you're going to do that right now, but what if you change your mind and want to do it later, right? So it's actually fear and security is the reason why they're doing what they're doing anyway. And so this way, but the other person's saying, what if you just want to take my youth and make me pop out babies and this and that, and when nobody wants me anymore, and then you're going to up and leave, and now you have all your money and you can go get your trophy spouse or whatever, and I'm going to be left on my own. And they have no security either, but they should have security. And so this way, both get what they need out of it. So I thank you, Lord, for giving me that wisdom. Not only part of that was put together, and some of that got ironed out as I was thinking out loud. So thank you guys for your questions. I think we came up with a winner here. I think that's a really good thing, and I'm not taking credit for it. I think the Lord gave that to me, and so I thank you for the question. All right, guys. So yeah, some people drop the bomb right before proposing or the wedding. No, you should ask early on. Not even ask, talk about early on. Say, here's my idea. I want to protect me, but I want to protect you too. I want both of us to have every possible incentive to be the best spouse we could be. Let's make the money and the whole situation work towards that goal. And then this way, it's everybody's protected. Both people are protected. Then both people are covered if you craft it the right way. And I never even thought before, not only adultery, but let's add in abuse and all the other stuff in there. The court kind of does that anyway. Like when you bring this to a court, the judge will factor in those things, the infidelity, serious gambling problems, whatever it is, abuse. But if we could just build that right into the prenup, then it's like, it's known, right? They could even make an independent missional statement that says it, right? Like, I promise to be the best spouse I can be. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. I'm not going to be abusive. I'm going to love, I'm going to cherish. And they know that not only do they want to do that, but there will be a financial cost to not doing it. There's a spiritual cost to it. There's a relational, emotional cost to it, but there'll also be a financial cost to it, because there is anyway. Like, sometimes even with the prenup, like, the judge can still do certain things if you're abusive or whatever. And so this way, both people know it from the very beginning, and both will be on their best behavior. They'll both treat each other the way they should be treated. And then maybe they'll stay together. And then they both get 50% and all the security they need and a great relationship to boot. That's the best thing. So, all right, guys. Awesome show. If you missed the beginning, go back and watch it in the replay. This was good. On Friday, we are going to talk about the pre-deliverance steps. So you think you need deliverance? What kind of stuff should you do to prepare yourself for that? What kind of stuff should you know? What kind of stuff should you be thinking about, praying about? What kind of stuff should you do first, even before this first session? And so I've never put together something like that before to say, hey, you think you want to schedule? Remember I gave it earlier. Well, I didn't talk about deliverance earlier, but where is my thing? Let's say I gave you the link earlier, empowerchristian.org/schedule. Like, if you think you might have a demonic problem and you want to get to the root of it, or even just pastoral counseling, any kind of thing that might be a spiritual struggle. Like, it could maybe just feel like I feel like I'm cursed. I feel like my money is cursed. I'm doing a lot of the stuff you talked about today. I just feel like I can't get anywhere. Maybe you feel like there's a curse there, and maybe there is one, to be honest. And so let's put together a plan that you can follow before even that first session, that helps prepare you to think about all the right stuff before that session, even before you schedule it. And so I'll send this to people. I'll put it on my page and say, if you think you have demons, you think you might have a spiritual problem, before you even schedule counseling with me, go watch this video, start to do this stuff first, and that will help prepare people. And so I think it'll be a good one. I have some stuff to say, but I definitely want to hear you guys. What stuff would you want addressed even before that first session? What questions would you have about demons, or about curses, about spiritual problems? What stuff would you want to understand better? What would help? If you've ever done that kind of counseling, what would have been good to know going in? Because a lot of times I'm explaining this stuff in the first session, which is why our first sessions are a long 3-hour new client session. But some of this stuff I might be able to say in a video that I send to people first. And so to help prime the pump, get things ready. And so I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts and questions. So I think it'll be a good one. I'll bring a bunch of stuff to teach, but I definitely I'll pepper in your questions throughout as well. And I think it'll be really good. So we are going to, what time am I going to do it? I don't have a marathon show. Let me just double check. Okay, so we're going to do regular time. We'll do 5:30, 5:30 Eastern Standard Time on Friday. And I'm going to put that out. Hopefully you guys noticed that I had the reminder go out before, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that already showed the thumbnail and said this show. And so it gives you the thing, and you can set the reminder and all that. Hopefully you clicked the reminder and it reminded you. I don't know. Let me know. Did anybody do that? Will you need a barf bucket on hand? No, I don't think so. I don't know if we're going to cast out some demons. Maybe we will. You never know. The Holy Spirit's in charge, not me. So, but yeah. So let me know if you didn't check this time. Let me know if the next one, you saw the reminder but thought it was your time, not my time. No, it should have converted to your time. Let me know. Did it? Oh, because it was the later time. So was it the right time? Yeah. So no, because I think You're on the other coast, so that's 3 hours difference. So yeah, no, the 5:30 my time would have been 8:30 your time. But it was 8 because I did the marathon show. So that's funny. So then it was working though. But I want to know if the reminder works too. And I didn't check in Facebook. Hopefully it does. It probably does. But because that would be good. That's what I want. Because this way, it's usually 5:30. But if it's not, this way I can do different times, and you can just trust what it says and click the reminder. And that way you always kind of know, and you also know what the topic is, right? Because it showed what the topic was in the thumbnail. So then you know, and so it's good. So speaking of that, you notice that's the closest I could get to green in my thing, by the way, because we're talking about money. I know it looks kind of blue still. It actually looks green here. I don't know why it looks so blue. Maybe I need to get a new webcam before. Maybe that's the next thing I do. So it's greenish. It's kind of aqua, but all right, guys, you be blessed. Have an amazing rest of your week. May your finances be blessed, and may God give you wisdom, implementing all of these things to get out of debt, so that way you can be used for the kingdom, that you could sow into the kingdom, that you could be generous with those who need it, for all of the stuff that God puts on your heart. This way, when God puts something on your heart, here's what he wants you to do that will bless you and bless others, then you'll have the money and say, all right, Lord, let's do it. That's when life starts getting exciting, when money stops, when your job and all that stops controlling you, and you have freedom to just do what God wants you to be doing. That's the real thing, that you're stewarding it for his glory, because he wants to use your money and your time and your talent and your spiritual gifts and your calling, and to give you the life that was meant to be lived, that will give you everything that you're looking for. And you will be truly fulfilled when that happens. And as someone who's beginning to walk in that myself, I can't encourage you to get there quicker. Get rid of all the idols and other stuff, all the keeping up with the Joneses stuff. Just sell it, get rid of it, get there as quick as you can. You'll be blessed. And so some of you might be able to do what Dave did, and he talks about getting gazelle intense. Run fast like a gazelle that a lion is chasing. Like, get rid of this debt. Go after it with a vengeance. Start selling stuff. He said in his book, start selling so many things that the kids think they're next. So, yeah, get crazy with it. I mean, have fun, enjoy it, know that there's a purpose to the whole thing. And so you don't have to be stressed when you're doing it. But yeah, get there quick. Don't drag it out for 50 years. You can do it. I got out of debt in less than 2 years when I first started this. And yeah, so be disciplined, and God will bless your faithfulness and your desire to serve him this way. And he'll probably bless your finances as well. All right, guys, be blessed. Have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll catch you on Friday. Take care.